people of Shmoolandia. Welcome to the second tutorial of Dungeons & Dragons 3.5 edition, where we will be learning ability scores. Well, you'll be learning, I'll be teaching. What you're going to need for this tutorial is a set of 4d6, that is 4 six-sided dice, and the player's handbook. Fortunately, that's how big as the screen gives me. Let's get started. Oh, one side note you're probably going to need is the character sheet, which you can get either on mythweavers.com, the preferred way for this tutorial, as that's what I will be using to teach you, or off the character sheet in the back of the player's handbook. I recommend making a copy of it, not actually writing on it in the book. Kind of depreciates the value of your book. And you kind of can't make any more copies of it either. With that, we're going to be making a human fighter character. Human being the race, fighter being the class. So, ability scores. How do we get them? What are they good for? Well, what they're good for is they are the core of your class. They're the core of your character. Without them, you don't have a character. What they are is 6 different abilities, and each ability has its own score or a representative number. First ability you have is strength. It helps with such things as carrying capacity, how much you can carry while we're traveling, your melee attack damage, and your melee attack rolls to see if you can hit. The higher the number, the better you do. Your strength checks to see if you can break free of something, or other strength related physical checks of if you can overcome this. Some skills affiliated with strength is climb, jump, and swim. So your next one, ability score that is, not skills, is dexterity. Dexterity is ranged attack rolls, your armor class, and your reflex saves. Armor class is your defense, the number they have to roll higher than in order to hit you and actually deal damage to you. We'll get more into armor class in future, as there's a lot of different situations and components of armor class. Reflex saves are saving throws, which again we will get into in the future, as there are 3 different types of saving throws, and each one has their own purposes. The next ability score... Oh, I'm sorry. I forgot about the skills for dexterity. Skills for dexterity. Balance, escape artist, hide, move silently, open lock, ride, sleight of hand, tumble, use rope. A lot of good thieving skills in there. A lot of good acrobatic skills in there. Dexterity is a good one for those rogues. So the next ability score, or ability, is Constitution. Constitution is your health. How tough are you? How many hit points do you have? It also affects your fortitude saves. Again, saving throws, we'll get to that later in another tutorial. The skills for the Constitution is concentration. That's it. Just concentration, which applies to more magic users, which we will get to in the future. Intelligence, which is kind of like book smarts, is affiliated with languages, your skill points per level. Notice how skills are heavy dependent on your ability scores, because again, abilities are your core of your character. It also affects arcane classes, such as your wizard and their bonus spells. Not all arcane classes, but mainly the wizard. Some skills for that are appraise, craft, decipher script, disable device, forgery, knowledge, search, and spellcraft. On to the next one is wisdom. Wisdom, I like to think of it as common sense. It's the common sense ability. Some adventurers just don't have it. Wisdom is a will save, which is a saving throw again. And wisdom helps the cleric, druid, paladin, and ranger class for bonus spells, along with other abilities in some of those classes. Some skills affiliated with the wisdom are heal, listen, profession, sense motive, spot, and survival. Some helpful ones in there. The final ability is charisma. This one can be kind of fun. Charisma, it helps represent attempts to influence others. The actual book term is checks that represent attempts to influence others. Some skills affiliated with charisma are bluff, diplomacy, disguise, gather information, handle animal, intimidate, perform, and use magic device. Now, when I play, I like to think of, again, intelligence as your book smarts, wisdom as your common sense and how wise you are. Again, some people don't have that much wisdom. Charisma is two things. It is your physical looks, as in, are you pretty, are you, well, butt ugly, and how well you communicate in social environments. Hence, a ability about influencing others. It's also affiliated with the sorcerer class. So these are the 6 ability scores, or abilities, because we haven't actually got the scores yet, for your class. And again, they are the core of your class. Without these, I'm sorry, I keep saying class, of your character, which class is part of your character, so we'll go with it. Your character, these are your core. Without them, you have no character. Let's get your ability scores. According to the book, your ability scores, to get them, you again use your 4d6, 4 6-sided dice. Ooh. And you roll them, like I'm doing right now in roll20.net. You then proceed to get a 3, a 5, a 5, and a 6 for our first set. If you're wondering how I'm doing all this stuff in the roll20.net, I will be doing a tutorial in the future on that to help explain how to do everything with their interfaces. So, you notice I didn't bring the 3 over. The reason I didn't bring this 3 over is because we drop it. We ignore the lowest score. We don't count it. We only add up 3 dice. Those 3 dice are the 3 highest numbers. Now this roll right here is the 3rd best roll you can get. The best roll you can get, obviously, is 666. Pretty evil roll for being the best, if you're into that thing. However, this roll being a 16, 18 is the highest, 17 is obviously the 2nd highest. Very good roll. I'm going to switch back over to my character sheet, and just in the character name here, it doesn't really matter right now because we'll erase these later. We're going to put 16. We're going to switch back. Now, we need to do this 5 more times. So I'm going to go ahead and get these numbers out here real fast. Well, yeah, about average for this roll, I think it is. If that number dice will stop rolling. There we go. So we're going to ignore that 2. We're going to go 3, 4, and 4. for an 11. And again, ignore the lowest. Roll again. Three, two, four. I'm sorry, I can't read. 3, 2, 5, 4. We're gonna add the 3, the 4, and the 5 together to create a 12. Let's do this rolling again 3 more times. And there they are. 4, 2, 4, 5. We're gonna ignore that 2. I almost said 4 there. That wouldn't have been right. We're going to ignore that 2, giving us a 13. You're noticing a pattern here, because I am. Let's go again here. Oh, that's not that bad at all. 5, 5, 3, 5 for a wonderful 15. I'm going to ignore that 3 again. Okay, we're skipping one number here. It happens. Last roll. If I can do math right. Yes, last roll. So we have 6, 1, 2, 5. Leaving us with a 13. Now, the reason I'm kind of cringing on these numbers is because yes, we have a 16, which is the 3rd highest, and yes, we have a 15, which is the 4th highest. However, according to the book, the average ability scores for an adventurer is 12 to 13. Now, being level 1, these numbers are fine. It works. You are about average. You actually are slightly above average because of that 16 and that 15, even though we do have an 11 in there. So we are still average adventurers, but that's perfectly fine because we're level 1. I myself, however, with how I run games, and how I have friends run games, we boost our characters. We make them more powerful than they actually are, because we take any one that we roll, like on this last one, we rolled a 1 here, and we re-roll it. We do that right now. We re-roll it. Oh, nice, a 6. And we take then, out of those numbers, we take the highest. So the highest would have been 665. But for the core books, the core rules, we do how we previously had just done it with these numbers right here. And we'll stick with these numbers right here. Another house rule, again, these are just house rules. They don't have to be used. They're just a lot of fun that we like to add to make our characters a little bit more powerful. Putting twists on things makes it so we tend to fight more things, or we tend to fight more powerful things right away. It gives it a twist. It's that simple. So the other house rule is this 11 here. I would have my players re-roll to see if they can get a higher number. If they can't, they stick with the 11. If they can, then cool, they get the higher number. Good for that. So what we're going to do is we're going to take these numbers and we're going to put them in our ability scores. Now, like I said, we're going to be a human fighter. There's different types of fighters. There's ranged fighters. There's melee fighters. There's specialty fighters that have a specific weapon, like think gladiators. Each gladiator had different proficiencies weapons, whether it was the trident and spear, trident and net, or it was the sword and shield, or it was dual-wielding swords, or it was single sword, or it was all different other kinds of combinations. Spike chain. There's different types of fighters you can be. So, to make it simple, we're just going to go with a damage-dealing fighter. The two main kind of fighters for basics is damage-dealing fighter and the tanky, beefy, strong fighter who can take a lot of damage. The damage dealer can't take as much damage. So what we're going to do, like I said, we're going to go for the fighter damage dealer type right now. And we're going to go with the 16 in the strength to give us that extra push of damage. Because again, the ability score for strength gives you that extra attack or extra damage roll. Gives you that extra push. And it also helps you hit better with melee. Better chance of hitting with melee. We're also going to put the 15 in the dexterity. That'll help us be a little bit more nimble. That'll help us increase our armor class. If you notice, Mythweavers is actually adding stuff up for us and inputting these modifiers, which I'll explain at the end, what the modifiers, how they're already being implemented into the character sheet. It auto-calculates stuff for us. Makes it a lot easier for playing, makes things a lot smoother for setting stuff up, and makes characters be built a lot faster. So with that, we're going to put a 13 in the Constitution, which will give us a little boost of health. Not a terrible lot, though, because that's the average number for an adventurer right now at level 1. And then we're going to put the 11 in Intelligence, because you don't need to be all that book smart to be a fighter. You just got to be able to know how to hack and slash. And then we will put a 12 in Wisdom and a 13 in Charisma. Now you notice the 12 and 13s are all +1s. That's the ability modifiers. Again, we'll get to that at the end of all this. But each number represents a certain modifier. And the modifier gets built into all your character sheets. So, the reason why I did this set of ability scores is because, again, don't need a lot of intelligence to be able to swing the sword. You do, in a sense, realistically, but in this, you don't. You got some wisdom. You got some charisma. The charisma will help you influence others. If you remember, charisma is the checks that represent attempts to influence others. So you can intimidate somebody and scare the crap out of them. Maybe even literally, if your DM literally has that happen. It's funny as hell. Or you can bluff them, or you can diplomacy and have a conversation with them and be able to talk you out of things if you don't feel like hacking and slashing. Role-playing can be a lot of fun. And then, again, the strength, be able to deal more damage, the dexterity to be able to avoid damage better, and then a little boost in our health. Wisdom will help with that +1, will help with being able to hear and see our enemy before they come at us. So those are our ability scores. Those are the basics of them, and that's how you roll them. And again, this is the core of your character. Without these, you have nothing. So, depending on the character you initially want to make, if you're going through this tutorial and you're not making a fighter along with me, you're making a magic based, then you're going to want more intelligence or wisdom or charisma, depending on the magic class you pick. So your ability scores are going to be different, set up differently, depending on your class. Fighter, we're going to go with this because we're going the damage dealer. Now I can delete these because we don't need them anymore unless you want your name to be that. We're going to put a level 1 in there. We're going to put a medium size in here because we are a human, which is a medium size. We'll get into that in the future. We'll even put human in there. And my player name. So, the top here, real quick, you fill out as you go. Character name can be whatever you want it to be. Your player name is normally your name, so that your DM and other people can distinguish whose character sheet's whose, if just by a quick glance. Your class, we will put fighter here, and then your race, your campaign, the name of the campaign that this character's in, your deity, your god who you worship, your physical looks of your height, weight, eyes, eye color, and hair color, your experience points, your alignment, which I will get into alignment in a whole nother tutorial because there's a bunch of them, how old you are, and whether you're male or female. Depending on the race, if you get out of the core books, then you might not have a gender. So with that, let's cover the last thing of this tutorial, and that's going in details about the ability modifiers. So let's open up Page 8 of the player's handbook has this chart. The ability modifiers and bonus spells. We're going to ignore the bonus spells right now. Don't need them. That's for the magic users. We're going to look at the score column. The first one here. You notice it's always 1 and then 2 to 3, 4 to 5, 6 to 7, 8 to 9, so on and so forth. Where everything but 1 has 2 numbers in each for the modifiers. That's why the 12 and 13 are 1s. If you had a 14 and a 15, it would be a 2. We have 115, so it's a 2. We have 116, so it would be a 3. Now, every 4th level, so 4, 8, 12, 16, and then 20, you get to increase one of these ability scores, one of these, by 1 point. The score, not the modifier. You get to increase the score by 1 point. So, if you want to increase your strength, it's going to take you essentially 8 levels to increase your modifier of that 3 to a 4. Because the ability, your score right now is a 16. To make it a 17 at level 4, it'd stay at a plus 3. Then you'd go to 18 to make it a plus 4. You'd be level 8 when you get the plus 4 in strength to be able to dish out that more damage. Or, as you're leveling, maybe your DM will throw in a magical item that'll boost your strength modifier. You never know. There's lots of different ways outside of leveling to improve your stats. So, you go off of this chart, if you're not using Mythweavers, to figure out your ability modifiers. Again, 12 to 13 would be a 1. The 15, which is in the 14 to 15, would be a 2. The 16, which is in the 16 to 17, would be a 3. The 11, which is in the 10 to 11, is no modifier. You get no bonus. So those are the ability modifiers. Now, ability modifiers, like I said, they are what you use to distribute throughout the rest of your character sheet, and they're what you use when you're rolling dice, when you're figuring out your skill checks, when you're going through all the game, when you're going through the game, period. You rarely ever, I don't even know any cases I've ever actually had it where you actually go off the score. The score is used only really in the beginning of the character creation. Once you get the modifiers, you pretty much don't go off the ability scores anymore. You just use the modifier. The only time, actually, now that I think about it, that we've ever had to use an ability score or ability score itself is when we got into initiative, which is who goes when in combat. Higher number, the sooner you go. If somebody has the same initiative number, a lot of times you'll go off the dexterity ability score. Whoever has the higher one goes first. If they have the same one, so you can roll a dice, maybe one person will just be nice and say you can go first. DM tends to have a way around that. So that is today's tutorial on getting your character set up. So with that, we covered ability scores this week. We went over the strength, dexterity, constitution, intelligence, wisdom, and charisma. We went over what each ability does to aid your character, along with how to get the modifiers of them. Went over a little bit of the character sheet in the top half of it where you put your race and your class. Go ahead, fill in your character name for that, whether you are male or female, your age. You can go ahead and enter that if you want. 18 for the game for humans is adult. You get too old, you can't suffer penalties. Otherwise, you can leave that blank, and I will get to that later on in future tutorials. Your height, weight, eye color, hair color, human. It's that simple. Until then, remember to subscribe, like this video, and share it with your friends so that you guys can learn together at the same time and be ready to play at the same time when you're all done. Until then, you have a great day, night, evening, whatever time it is by you. I will see you later.